downtown, so we'd go up and see them a lot.
Sorry.
That was nice.
I have a client who actually owns a race car team. So
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
do a lot.
Go to the right place for that.
Yeah. I'm breaking the rules, I know. But I'm eating.
That's wild.
Oh, that was.
Yeah.
Was I wrong? I administrated them.
Need it.
For what? He said they didn't know where they were supposed to sit. I thought it was over here.
Thank you.
Oh, shoot, I gotta get my computer. Is it the alternate?
And I almost was.
Can you do that? Can you be on a Zoom call and?
If you have a physical quorum, you can. So as long as there are enough people here to make a quorum, the remainder can appear by Zoom.
What is our quorum?
I think it's
I
three.
think it's 3. Let me look at the rules of procedure. Three members for the call to order. So we have a quorum. So if he wanted to appear by Zoom, he could. Can you, is he? He's not on. He's not on the Zoom call.
I don't think they sent a link for Zoom option.
I'm assuming it's the same link. If that's the case, then there's spots for the alternate. That would mean that. Jackie, are you vice chair?
Yeah. Yeah, Jackie.
So Jackie's chair this
Jackie's
evening.
chair.
Am I sharing?
Well, if Chris isn't
Great.
here, your chair.
What?
I know that you just
We're
raced
really
over here,
happy.
and now the responsibility is thrust upon you.
Thrust is, yes. Give me another piece of candy if I have
So I
to share.
guess,
She needs more sugar.
Something stronger than candy.
yeah.
Mhm.
Bingo.
Well, then you should. So you all can participate this evening, considering we would like a full board.
It's been touched by human hands,
It's all good, man.
but they zapped me and I have no fever.
Yeah, I don't think our other members are going to be in attendance this evening, so you get to be board members this evening.
How do you do this did somebody sterilize the tables?
That guy, as always.
All right, it's 7. Oh, 2.
No, I'm good.
You can switch chairs.
Goes,
Yeah,
you
what do I
can't,
do?
you can't move once you sit
You
down.
gotta
It's
be-
against CDC rules.
Right.
So you're gonna be right here. You're ready. How you doing?
Good.
Jackie, right?
I'm Jackie.
I'm Steve.
Mike,
Hi, Steve.
So does that make Mike or the vice chair this evening?
always,
You would. It goes in order of tenure, right? So,
well, if it goes by seniority, I'm older than everybody here.
I didn't say seniority, I said tenure.
Stand you with the mask.
You're running it again?
I guess so.
We're on video. Oh, that's right.
Just so you know, you're at 7:03.
Take our mask off.
Yes. Okay, so can we please call the meeting to order with a roll call?
Ms. Turner,
Present.
Mr. Burris, Mr. Urbanski, Mr. Eisner,
Present?
Miss Rich,
Present.
Mr. Davis,
Present.
Miss Simon.
Present. Thank you. So can we please have the quasi judicial announcement?
This is a quasi-judicial, this is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Adjustment acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. Are there any members of the board wishing to disclose any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest this evening? Seeing none, if anyone who is going to be speaking this evening could please stand up to be sworn in. Just raise your right.
If I take my mask off,
That's fine. Just raise your right hand for me.
sorry, I'm hard of hearing,
Oh,
so.
quite all right. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
So sworn.
Thank you. So our first and only item on the agenda today is application number 20-127, which is a variance to allow a non-conforming lot of record to be built upon. The location is 0 Park Avenue, which is the west side of North Park Avenue. So if we could please first start with our staff report.
Okay. Just gonna share my screen. Okay. The subject property is located off of Park Avenue. It's outlined here in yellow on the screen. The property, as well as all surrounding property, is in the R100 zoning district, which is a single-family zoning district. The applicant is here today requesting variance approval to allow a non-conforming lot of record that has been under common ownership with an adjacent property to be buildable. The Land Development Code establishes that if at any time a owner of a non-conforming lot of record owns adjoining land, the lots shall be combined to meet the minimum lot requirements. The two properties that we're looking at today are shown here on the screen. The subject property specifically is Lot 11, which is the solid yellow line, and then Lot 12 to the south with the dotted line. So I'm just going to walk you through a little bit of site history for these two properties. Back in 1925, they were originally platted as a part of the Innis Park subdivision. The subject property, again, is Lot 11 to the north and Lot 12 to the south. In 1957, a new land development code went into effect, and these properties fell into the R1AA zoning district. The minimum lot area was 7,500 square feet for that district. Both of these lots are less than that in area, therefore they are considered legally non-conforming. In 1960, the home on Lot 12 was built. And then in 1984, the owner of Lot 12 purchased Lot 11, putting these two lots into common ownership. In 1990, our current land development code went into effect, and these properties were then located in the R100 zoning district. For that district, the minimum lot area was 10,000 square feet, and the minimum lot width was 75 feet. And in both of these instances, these lots do not meet those, so they continue to be non-conforming lots. In 1992, Lot 12, the one with the house was sold separately. And in 1995, they went under common ownership again when the owner of Lot 12 purchased Lot 11. And then in 2019, the applicant here tonight acquired both of these properties. And then earlier this year, Lot 12 was sold separately, and the applicant continues to own Lot 11. The Land Development Code establishes a set of review standards for variances for non-conforming lots of record. This is to be used by the board to consider whether or not the lot is able to be built upon. Those standards are listed here on the screen. Staff does indicate that each of those have been met. Based on that, the entire Lot 11 was legally platted back in 1925. The lot was not created in violation of a previous zoning ordinance. And although Lot 11 and Lot 12 were under common ownership throughout the years, the home on Lot 12 was built prior to these two becoming into common ownership, so it did not rely on it to be developed. Since the staff report was prepared and you received your packets, we have been in correspondence with a neighboring property owner. There was some question about whether or not the applicant owned the entire Lot 11 or just a portion. So for clarification, we wanted to let the board know that staff's recommendation was based off of the understanding of the ownership of the entirety of Lot 11 as opposed to a portion. And with that, I'll pass it back to the board.
Okay, thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much. And if we can start with our public comment, ask the secretary, have we haven't received any emails or correspondence related to this agenda item? I see that we do, when we walked in today, we have some new material that has been presented to us.
Actually, I've got this email that I was going to read from Mr. let's see, John Diamandis, a neighboring property owner. It's addressed to the City of Tarpon Springs Planning and Zoning Department.
Okay.
It's regarding variance application 20-127 Park Avenue, Lot 11, Block D, Innis Park, hereinafter the subject parcel. Ladies and gentlemen, this letter is being sent on behalf of my mother, Mary G. Diamandis, the owner of 115 North Park Avenue, formerly known as 336 Park Avenue, the property immediately to the north of the subject parcel. We object to the above referenced requested variance to allow construction on the subject parcel hereinafter the variance for the following reasons, which are based upon the facts that we currently understand them. The subject parcel was originally owned by my parents and as part of their 115 North Park Avenue home and property. In 1984, my family sold the subject property to Mr. and Mrs. Vaporis, who wanted additional land for their home on Lot 12, hereinafter the home lot. It was sold with the understanding that it was not itself a buildable lot and would be combined with a forever used as part of the Vaporis's home lot.
Kim, I'm gonna stop you right there, and I'm gonna defer to the chair on this matter. This is a very long email. I know that we had a certain script set up for when we were doing Zoom meetings, but we are now back in physical format.
Right.
This email was provided to all of you this evening and has been made part of the record. So I defer to the board, but my suggestion would be not to read it in its entirety into the record. If Mr. Diamandis wanted to appear this evening, he could do so either via Zoom or in person. Otherwise, this is part of the record already, and it can be discussed. But I certainly defer to the board, but for time purposes and for the fact that we are in person now, I just wanted to bring that up before Kim continues.
That's a very good point, and I agree. So this was presented to us just this evening, and as we know, we typically have, thanks to staff presenting well in advance, very detailed reports. So, and this is a lot of very good information that I feel deserves our time to give attention to. So that is an issue of concern. If I don't want to speak for my fellow board members, but thinking, we have, 4 pages of content, which are worthy of proper attention that are presented. So I don't know how much time our fellow board members have had a chance to review this information. Do you have a copy, sir?
I don't, Jack.
Staff, can Chris get a copy? Because he was,
And I might also add too, and I know we're kind of going out a little bit of order here. I mean, I certainly would like to give the applicant, his time to present his case. I will say that I am going to give instruction to this board that some of the information that is contained in this letter has to do with ownership of the property. It is not the purview of this board to determine whether or not the applicant owns the property or whether or not the history as set forth in the email determines ownership. That is not something that you are tasked with doing, and the code is very silent on whether or not the applicant has to prove ownership. Understanding from a legal point of view, if you grant a variance to someone who does not own the portion of the property or the property that's in question, it's void on its face. So my recommendation to you would be to take what's in the email for evidence or for consideration as it applies to the criteria that you are to be considering this evening. However, that the variance, if you are to choose to grant it, should be conditioned on the fact that if it's granted, the applicant is required to show sufficient proof of ownership to the city that when applying for any building permits, that the city would be able to determine ownership of the property. However, the city does that. The city is going to be the one that's going to have to determine whether or not the applicant meets the ownership requirements. And that's going to be something that will have to be determined at a later date. That is not for you to decide here. But you do need to determine if there's competent, substantial enough evidence that the applicant could foreseeably get this variance that they're requesting.
Okay, thank you
If that
very
makes
much.
sense, and otherwise I can answer any question.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, and I have a feeling we will be relying on your expertise as we proceed. So we do have, as noted, have received this November 16th, that we have this today. So if we want to, if the applicant wanted to present their information as to what they are proposing today.
I still want to go back.
Yes,
Are
I
you the
actually
applicant?
would like to address the information that's in the letter that was just sent out, the 4-page or 5-page letter that you're referring to. I provided to the board yesterday and today the original deeds that were signed by Mary G. Diamandis back in 1984.
Could you hold your question, sir, for 1 minute? Because just on protocol, I don't think we ever got to ask staff questions on this case prior to you speaking. So I do personally have questions that I wanted to ask. So if you don't mind, if
I'm
We
sorry,
will
could you
certainly
say
get
that
to
again?
you.
I can't hear you.
If you don't mind, I would need to ask staff questions prior to you giving your presentation.
Yes,
If
sir.
that's okay with you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if any members of the board have questions for our staff,
Me, thank you. I do.
Mr. Eisner.
Joanne, if you want to lead, she raised her hand.
I just have one question about the criteria. This is new criteria for me to see. And I'm just wondering, is it new criteria for the city? Or is it new criteria because of this type of case?
Yes, it's there's a set of criteria specifically for non-conforming lots of record. So that's why it looks different to you. And this is not necessarily a common thing that you probably have seen the last couple of years. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so you guys are used to seeing the original 5 criteria that are applicable to all variances. And in some circumstances, you have that 5 criteria in conjunction with other criteria. In this set of circumstances, this ordinance was passed, it looks like in 2012. So it's been on the books for a while. I think maybe this board has only ever seen this one other time. But for this type of a variance, there are very specific criteria. And as determined by the planning director, that these 3 criteria with the subsections and criteria, the first A, those are the only criteria that you're to be considering this evening, not your regular standard 5 other criteria.
Thank you.
My question is, what sizes are these lots? That would be lot 11 and lot 12.
Sure. Lot 11 is just under 6,300 square feet, and lot 12 is just about that same size. I can get you the actual square footage here. One moment.
And while you're on there, you might as well see if you can find the length and the length and the width as well.
Sure. Well, the width of both of the lots are just about 60 feet wide. They're about the same. Let me. And lot 12 is just about 7,000 square feet in area. And then as far as the length, the length is about 120 feet.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you.
Yeah, I
Thank
can
you.
Proceed?
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
Okay,
please.
all right, sorry.
Well, any other questions from the board for the staff? Okay, seeing none, can we have comments from the applicant, please?
Yes, ma'am. So I did review the 5 pages, and to me, there's 2 critical points that I want to point out. The first is the neighbor's son is questioning whether I own all of Lot 11. So I went to the clerk of county records and met with Scott Jensen, who is in charge of the property appraisal for this lot. And I pulled from the record a warranty deed from 1984, and then the same day, a quit claim deed was filed and signed by Mary G. Diamandis, and I provided that to the board. What this clearly shows that originally the warranty deed showed a portion of Lot 11 being sold, and then the quit claim deed was followed up after that, showing that all Lot 11 was assigned to the Manuel Vaporez and Ann Vaporez family. So what the county appraiser office told me is since 1984, this has been taxed at a buildable lot of record. And that was based on it's the quitclaim deed book 5762 page 1470, which I provide you copies of that. So that clearly indicates that it's not a partial lot, it's an entire lot. So I wanted to address that because that's in the letter. And then the second thing I'd like to just address as a general statement is I think it would be helpful for the board to understand that Sophia Amagrinos did, and this was already documented in your notes, that she bought Lot 12 in 1992. She then bought Lot 11 in 1995. So they were never combined. They were 2 separate transactions. When you go to 2019, when I got involved, the foreclosure was actually only on Lot 12, and that was handled by a company called BK Global. And that was based on a reverse mortgage that Sophia had defaulted on. She actually owned Lot 11 free and clear. So when I inquired on it, the bankruptcy attorney basically was allowed to sign away the rights to that based on 2018 and 2019 taxes being paid, which had not been paid. So it was 2 separate transactions, 2 parcels. They were never combined, even when I purchased it in 2019. When you read through the 4 pages, everything in that letter talks about combination, that they were combined as a conforming lot, and they were never combined all the way to my purchase in 2019. And those are 2 critical points I wanted to make the board aware of.
Thank you very much, sir. And we appreciate your research here, and we may call on you to ask some additional questions and clarifications. So just
Yes,
stand
ma'am.
by. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is new for me, guys. This is a very big learning experience.
You know, it is for everyone. You're doing great. We appreciate that you are patient with us because as our,
Yes,
council
ma'am.
said, this is some criteria that we do not see often. So we're going to proceed with patience to make sure everything is done fairly and correctly.
Understood.
Thank you. So do we have anyone else present that would like to speak about this application that is before us?
I'm sorry, can you say again?
I was wondering if we had anyone else present. It looks like we
Oh,
don't.
yes, this is my sister Lynn, and she's helped me because I can't hear, and she actually hears better than I do.
Thank you, Lynn.
We do have a raised hand in Zoom.
Oh, we do. So can we acknowledge the Zoom participant?
If you can state your name and address for the record.
Hey, everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. This is Jimmy Dowell, and I have my girlfriend Abby Coulter with me. We are the owners of Lot 1231 North Park Ave. And we wanted to, there's a few things here. So we wanted to first get some
Before you guys
information.
begin, do you mind if I might be able to swear you in?
Oh, yeah, sure.
If you could just swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
It is, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Oh, you bet. Thank you. This is all new to us too, so bear with us. Okay, so I guess for starters, we're looking for a little more information on details on this variance, what the setbacks entail. Our lot is, as you can see from the survey, from the application, is literally adjacent to lot 11. So the approval to build on this has some concerns of ours, notably intrusiveness and what would be like an issue of privacy, especially if the build is right up against our lot line. And a couple other things, we're concerned now of having our property value at stake here with the build. If it's a rather large build and the build is built up, again, engulfing our territory, and the natural aesthetic of the neighborhood and the street itself, there isn't houses that are butted up against each other. So it's an issue of aesthetic as well. So is there any detail you can provide on what's the intent with the build and the property type and the setbacks are involved? Because one thing that I'm interested in is, if there is any adherence to the R100 zoning from the side setbacks and detail around that, I'd be really interested to know what that is.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that you have logged in tonight and joined us and taking an active interest in this. Looking to staff and council, just to confirm, we are providing a variance for the applicant to build, correct? We do not have in play before us an application to build a certain size or location on the lot. Is that correct?
Correct. There's no site plan for the property right now. The applicants are just here today to get the determination whether or not the lot is buildable. Originally, there was a request for setbacks, but they did withdraw that before it came before the board. I can speak just a little detail about what the actual setbacks are for an R100 district. As far as side setbacks go, there is a minimum of 10 feet required in this district with a total of 25 feet for both side yards combined. If for some reason, if this goes through and the lot, they have a site plan for the property and those setbacks were not met, they would have to go through a variance process that would come back before the board in a public hearing to get that approved or denied either way.
Okay, and can you please let us know what the front and rear yard setback would be as well?
Sure, the front setback is 25 feet and the rear is 30 feet.
Okay. So that would, if you were to, this is horrible math on my part, maximize the setbacks, the requirements there, you would be looking at no more than a 35-foot wide house. Am I correct?
40.
Well, because you
haven't done
have
the
your total 25,
Side to side, it's 10.
Yeah, right.
but a total of 25.
25. So 110, 115.
Ah, okay. So a 35-foot wide house, and my math skills have not gotten me to the depth of the home, I would say.
I also don't have the math skills.
Hey, that's okay. It's all good.
Don't ask the lawyer, but you said it's 35 in the front and
Either one.
and I have a calculator.
Regardless, the standards of the R100 district have those setbacks in there. So any sort of encroachment into them would require a variance and it would come before the board for a public hearing. So there'd be another opportunity to address that specific issue once the plan is drawn.
Correct. And I believe the applicant is going to provide some information for us.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to explain. I did request initially for the setback variance, but I was not aware that you have to supply building plans, which I'm not prepared at this point to do that. So that's why I withdrew the variance. I would like to point out also, if you look at the very large house behind lot 11 that's just being constructed on lots, I believe it's 6 and 7, that's also R100, and he's only about 5 feet from the back of my property. So a variance has already been approved. So I don't know what that will determine in the future, but they were given a smaller setback variance to put that large house on lots 6 and 7.
Okay. All right. So that's good to know that, you know, where you are in the process. And just as we have been informed, we cannot look to what has happened on other properties when we're deciding.
Understood.
So just wanted to make sure that you had that point of clarification. So just knowing for the gentleman that is in the Zoom, thank you for your patience, that what's presented before us today is to determine if this is a buildable lot. What the property owners would choose to build would then have to go through the processes, which would mean them meeting with planning and zoning and et cetera to make sure that they are complying with the setbacks that all other properties would have to. If the property owner, the gentleman in front of us, determines he wants to build a home that would not fit within that criteria, he would then be back in front of this board requesting that variance.
Correct.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Is it at that juncture where the setbacks, the side setbacks are determined in relation to our lot, which is lot 12? Because I think
Yes.
you said, okay.
Point, but the property owners, they very well may choose a plan to build a home that is within the approved setbacks already. So it may be a moot point. We do not know until the property owner determines what home he or she would like to build.
Sorry.
So, sorry, this is Abby. I just wanted to ask, with those setbacks and the set feet that you have, do you also cap the size or the height of the home, or is that like they could go up as high as they want?
I'm going to defer to our staff on that.
Yes, the maximum height for that zoning district is 35 feet.
So that's a two-story, your typical two-story house. I caution to say the word typical.
Yeah, depending on what the plans are, but 35 feet would be the maximum height that is allowed in that zoning district. Again, if for some reason that wasn't met, it would have to go through a variance process and public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So do we have any questions of the applicant from our board today?
Do you have any plans to build anything on this property?
I do not. Currently, the property is up for sale, and that's why I need just a buildable lot of record, because if it's not buildable, then I don't know how you sell the lot, honestly. So that's what I was trying to get today. I have no plans to build at this point in time, but I don't know what I'll say in the future.
Okay. Well, thank you for that clarification. So you're looking to put it on the market to say this is a buildable lot.
Yes.
And then saying this is the buildable lot, these are the city's setbacks required for that lot.
Correct, because if it's considered not to be, then I'd have to also go back and get all the taxes changed, because it's being charged at a value of a buildable lot as well, too. That's a different issue. It's taxed, I believe, at $59,000 today, based on the Pinellas County assessment, and that's based on a full lot 11 that's buildable. It wouldn't be charged at that value if it wasn't that case based on their records.
Good point. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have any questions of the applicant? I'm gonna try to jumble this together, of the applicant, of the property owners who have joined us via Zoom, and our staff or council.
I just maybe have a statement to make. That's all I can do.
Mr. Eisner, I'd love to hear your statement.
We're kind of faced here with something that in the years that I've been on this board, I've not really seen many cases like this. So kind of what I'm getting a feel for is, as I'm reading the 3 criteria that we're to review this on, it's almost a given that, in my own opinion, that you would receive a variance for this. The issues that I have, though, is whether it's going to be buildable on the second part of it. So even if we give you this variance, or if I give you this variance and I vote for it that way, I don't know if it's possible to build something that's 35 or 40 feet like that on a property like that. So I don't know, I don't want to mislead and I don't want to get into, future cases, but on our regular criteria, this would not pass at least my, review. So I don't know, what you're looking to do with it.
Well, I think I can answer that because I did the measurements, and if I'm correct, the R100 specification is 1,200 square feet is the minimum size house, which is 30 by 40 feet. So if you don't do any variances to the setbacks, there's enough room on that property to put that concrete pad on there now is actually larger than that. So there's enough room to put a minimum size 1,200 square foot house. I don't know what we'll do, and that's another secondary issue, but there's definitely enough room to put a minimum size house on that lot if we choose to do that. You can also, you're correct, you can go up 35 feet. So if it's 1,200 square feet, you go up 2 stories because the current lot is right now at 11 feet base elevation. So you don't have to elevate the property to be above flood zone. And therefore with 35 feet, including your roof, you should be able to get 2 stories, which would make it a 2,400 square foot house. And these are all rough numbers. But I don't know the answer to that because I was told I have to submit building plans before we get to that next step. At this point, all I'm trying to verify is that it's a buildable lot so that I can verify my taxes that I pay on this property is based on a buildable lot. That's all I'm looking for at this point.
I fully understand. And you were agreeing with me. What I was trying to explain to you is to get a variance on it once it becomes, if it becomes a buildable lot, you would not be able to lean on to those setbacks. So yes, if you're staying within the setbacks that you just stated, yes, you could build on it. So you agreed with me. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we are not architects, we're not builders or planners, but our fuzzy math, you're looking at if you were to sell this lot, which seems to be your intention, the new owners, assuming they were looking to build a home, it's looking 35 to 50-ish. So it's a modest home. Personally, I love modest size homes. So just knowing that your buyers would have their eyes wide open, knowing what they were buying. Okay, so if we don't have any other questions or any discussion here, if we would like to go forward with a motion.
This is Jimmy at 31 North Park. Sorry, I have one question, and it might have been mentioned already, but what is the minimum square foot the home needs to be for an R100 zone?
The minimum net floor area is 1,200 square feet.
It's 1,200. It's on the sheet.
Okay. All right.
So-
And the last point I'll make is that, because from our purview that the sale is pending on that lot, we should know the intent.
And
I mean,
I can speak to that to clarify. At this point, and I think Madam Chairwoman did a good job of explaining it, but at this point, whether or not that a home is going to be built on that or whether or not the sale is contingent on anything, unfortunately or fortunately, that's not this board's purview. The only thing this board can do at this time is take the evidence that's been presented at this hearing, compare it with the 3 criteria that are listed in the Code of Ordinances, and figure out if the facts and evidence support the criteria. If they do, they are required to grant the variance, regardless of what their personal feelings are, or if in the future somebody builds a house or wants to come back for another variance or determines that they can't build a house there or whatever. So that is the only thing that this board is tasked to do, is take the evidence, see if it fits the criteria. If it does, they have to grant the variance. If it doesn't, they cannot grant the variance. And this is only to determine if the lot in the future is buildable per the criteria in the code, not maybe pragmatically or whatever, but per the criteria in the code. I hope that provides some sort of clarification, because I don't think that any more discussion on that topic is going to be helpful for this variant.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And again, appreciate the time for us to speak. Thank you.
Just one more.
So, Mr. Eisner.
Thank you. This is a question for the attorney. And this is just for clarification. When it states here on number 3, the lot was not combined with a neighboring lot, I presume they're referring to the lot 11 and lot 12, not that it was common ownership.
Correct. Combined meaning that it ended up becoming a single lot or a joined part, a single parcel. So
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
So if we don't have any other comments or questions, if we could have a motion? Oh, yes, ma'am.
I'll make a motion to approve variance.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I have, before, I know ownership was in question. I didn't know if you wanted to add the condition or if you are satisfied with that, or if I wanted to add the condition that was listed in the packet, that it be conditioned as to being able to provide proof of ownership to the city at the time of permitting. Add the condition, you don't have to. I'm just.
So Ms.
It was
Rich,
mentioned at the
that's,
beginning.
the motion is yours. So if you would like to amend your motion to add the condition that proof of ownership is required.
Sure, I will amend my motion to approve the variance with the condition of proving ownership to the city.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and second.
Mrs. Simon,
Approve.
Mr. Davis,
Yes, approve.
Ms. Rich,
Approve.
Mrs. Turner.
Approve. Oh, it's me. Patience, folks. So we have approved. You are approved, sir. Thank you very much. I hope your first and maybe your only experience in front of us was pleasant. So
Is the process to receive some communication or a letter that states it's buildable so I can have that for my records?
I'm deferring to staff on that.
Yes, we'll get you a letter.
Okay.
And
Thank
keep
you
in
very
mind,
much,
you
everyone,
have
for your
and
patience.
keep in mind that the variance is only good for 2 years. You must secure a building permit within 2 years for the code.
So another good thing to put in your sales information. And thank you to our neighbor who has joined us via Zoom. Thank you for your participation and interest and patience.
Did he hear that? Did you hear that part, sir, about the 2 years?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, do I need to clarify the ownership since that was a question, or I
That'll
provided
be-
the 2 deeds? That should clarify that because that's, okay.
It'll be to the city. So whatever the city asks to provide,
did.
they'll work with you on that.
Well, and that would be at the time of permitting. So remember, your variance is only good for 2 years.
Yes, ma'am.
So upon expiration of the variance, if no building permit has been submitted for, the variance expires and the lot's no longer buildable.
Okay.
Or deemed buildable. If building permits are applied for at the time of permitting, whoever the owner is needs to provide proof of ownership of the entire lot for lot 11.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. So if we can move on, we have our approval for the minutes.
Motion
So-
to approve.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And if,
We need a roll call.
we need a roll call, please?
Mrs. Simon,
Approve.
Mr. Davis,
Approve.
Ms. Rich,
Approve.
Mr. Eisner,
Approve.
Turner.
Approve. Okay, well, thank you. So do we have any staff comments for us this evening?
I do not.
Okay.
Welcome back to person.
Welcome back to in person. We are all still physically here. And do we have any board comments this evening? Ms. Rich?
Just welcome to our alternates. As someone who served in that second alternate capacity when I was starting out, congratulations on your first meeting. I'm sorry it was a little unusual case, which was not our normal criteria, but still great to be a part. Thank you for that and your time coming to the meetings. I do have a question for our staff. Because with the ordinance, as the lawyer indicated, we do have to have a quorum in person, and which is 3 people, but that other members could join via Zoom and still participate. I didn't think when we were notified about this meeting that we were given that Zoom information. And I'm just thinking our chair, I don't know if he wanted to, if he knew about that option. So just if we're proceeding in this kind of hybrid model, we might want to think about that.
Well, I do want to condition that with, while the governor did lift the executive order which suspended in-person quorums, there has been discussion among the city attorneys throughout the state of Florida what exactly that means, as there are people who are technically high risk and who are looking to say, I want to appear via Zoom. There's been discussion to say, if as long as you have a physical quorum, somebody else could call in. The recommendation amongst the body of attorneys, which is never a good idea, is that if you need to appear in person unless you have some sort of extenuating circumstances like a health concern that can be documented, of course, without violating any type of HIPAA or anything like that. So understanding that it may be more convenient to appear via Zoom, and perhaps Mr. Herbosky would prefer to have done that. It really is unadvisable to do that at this time, but who knows what the future holds. So, but of course, that would be governed however you all see fit, provided that we still meet the physical quorum requirements per statute.
Thank you very much for that clarification. And I think we all second Ms. Rich's sentiment of welcome. And I believe this board believes in trial by fire. So you had your fire.
Well,
So
thank you.
this was certainly a unique application in front of us. So thank you so much for jumping right in. So, and welcome. Look forward to working with you, whether it's in person, Zoom, whatever 2020 and 2021 yikes has before us. Sir, of course, Mr. Eisner, we'd love to hear from you this evening.
Thank you. Thank you. So yes, I did want to welcome our new alternates. This was a very interesting type case, and going on from a very interesting case, I would like to recommend that in the future, staff lets us know ahead of time that we're not going to be following our own criteria, that there would be new criteria, just to keep us, to make us aware when we get the paperwork, so that we're more prepared, that we're not walking in, because the letter that was written, the email, refers to our criteria that we normally follow. So if and I believe that the person who's objecting to the variance should also be made aware of that it falls under a different criteria than we're normally accustomed to as well. Because the letter that I was reading, by being presented moments before the case, I'm reading it anticipating that was what we were going to go by. And instead, we were going by a completely different set of criteria. So in order to just save some confusion, if we can, make us more aware of it in the beginning. There's also another thing. I don't know if there's a way of getting these emails to us, so it's not a hot potato place, that we are reading this long legal type of document written by an attorney and trying to determine if it's even, and it was completely inadmissible any which way, because it was more so tainted to our criteria rather than the three criteria that we were to go by. So
Yeah, so
there's a lot of what I had to say.
I understood. What I will say, so typically we would provide any sort of submitted written materials that we receive before we send out the packets with the packets. This one came in, I believe, on Monday this week, so that's why we present it to you today. As far as the criteria goes, those will always be supplied in the staff report. They're listed, and they also have the staff's provisional findings to that criteria. But if there's some sort of unique case, I think that we can definitely give you a heads up that it might be a little bit different than what you're used to. But you can always refer back to the staff report. They'll be in there, and they'll have the set of criteria for you.
Well, yes, and thank you. It's just, especially this was our first time back. And you did a marvelous job as chair, I saw the little sweat droplets,
Yeah,
but
it's
you
like,
know,
dude.
it was one of those type cases. We have two alternates. We have a different chair, the vice chair is covering for the chair. So all in all, it was just, I put myself in the position that these alternates have been in, where I came in my first time and there was a stack of paper this high and I was trying to read through it. And I felt like Lucy on the chocolate factory. I just couldn't keep up. So I understand what it's like when you have all this kind of stuff. And I commend you for sitting and not freaking out, because this was a tough case to, think through. So thank you all.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, it was unusual on multiple points. I think it's 2020 unusual. So thank you very much. If we don't have any other board comments, I believe we will adjourn. I can't see the clock.
7:48.
7:48. So meeting adjourned, 7:48 p.m. Woohoo!